Yesterday, February 27th, the chess world was met with the harrowing news of the passing of Boris Spassky, the 10th world chess champion. In this video, we are commemorating one of the greats. And not only that, I have a spicy, perfect game. We have some model games on this channel. We even illustrate some young guns playing some wonderful games. Well, today's a little bit different. We not only have Boris Spassky playing this game in 1949 at 12 years old, but he scored an astounding 100% accuracy. All 21 moves in this game are either book moves, best move, great move, or brilliant move. And just to show proof, of course, full transparency, here it is on my screen, Boris Spassky, 100% accuracy. Spassky had white in what was the junior championship in Leningrad, today's St. Petersburg, in 1949 against an also very talented young kid, Avtonomov, who was 2200 at the time. Spassky was 2300. These kids are like 12 years old. It's very impressive. Spassky opens with d4, his opponent goes with d5, and now c4, the queen's gambit, and his opponent accepts it. So the queen's gambit accepted. Black takes here. This is still played at top level today, but eventually the black pieces will return this pawn in exchange for speedy development and castling, although this game does not go that way. Spassky develops with knight f3, knight f6 by his opponent, and now e3 attacking this pawn. His opponent doesn't care for the pawn. You can try to defend it with b5, securing this link, but then a4 breaks the pawn structure. If takes, white can just gobble up everything here and have a superior pawn structure. But normal theory today, you can play c6, takes, and then knight c3, and white will eventually gain back the pawn with b3 here. And if you take, we have this nice trick, bishop takes with check, and then we'll take back here. Avtonomov doesn't care about any of that and just uses this c5 push to attack the center. Now, Spassky takes and e6 to develop this bishop and castle quick. This doesn't happen. Castles by Spassky, and his opponent goes with a6. A very typical plan in the queen's gambit accepted, queen's gambit declined. Here, black wants to march up b5 and develop the bishop this way on the long diagonal. Spassky plays one of 4 moves that are played in this position. Knight c3, bishop b3, queen e2, a4 are all moves. He plays the least popular today, queen e2. And you must ask yourself, how does this protect against this b5 thrust? Well, it doesn't. The idea of queen e2 is that it clears this d1 square for the rook eventually. So his opponent goes knight c6, but here, Spassky is facing this b5, bishop back to d3, c4 attacking the bishop again, gaining tempo for black, bishop back to c2, and this last move, knight coming into b4 and trapping this bishop. So let's say if you play rook d1 immediately, this might get you into trouble because at the end of this, black gains this bishop pair. So Spassky, 12 years old, has the maturity of playing knight c3. Seeing all of this, bishop b1 is better for white. And white keeps the bishop pair, all because you cleared the b1 square while developing the knight to c3. Quite beautiful. His opponent, seeing this, goes wrong for the first time in the game. You see, bishop b7 is the right way to develop. White will go rook d1, and now bishop e7, and takes, queen here. Black will develop, it will be fine. Castling next. But here black takes. And now we see why queen e2 is so nice, because now rook d1, and this is pinning the pawn, aiming to recapture easily on this d4 square. Spassky's opponent here is quite confused. You see, if he just goes bishop e7, which is what he wants, just develop and castle, well, now Spassky is being very threatening. E takes d4. If castles, d5. Super strong move, activating all 4 of these pieces. Takes. Now this queen is eyeing this bishop, which is a little bit wobbly. Knight takes. We're threatening to take here with check on the king and winning the queen by discovery. So knight takes knight, and bishop takes, pinning this knight to the rook. This queen is also overloaded from the defense of this bishop. Let's say queen c7 to defend, bishop takes knight. The queen can't defend this bishop no longer, and we win a piece. And let's say bishop b7, bishop takes, discovered attack on the queen, winning the full house. Seeing all that and being extremely scared, surely, his opponent goes bishop b7 with aim of controlling this d5 square with knight b4 on the next turn. So Spassky takes here on d4, knight b4 is met, a great method from blocking the activity we previously saw on this d5 square if white were to push. Spassky, once again showing great maturity for his age, does not go for this knight e5, which is what your 12-year-old would go for. You know, threatening knight takes f7, let's say like a no move, threatening this with a mating attack, and if your opponent blocks here, then you have a winning sacrifice here on b5, winning a pawn. This is just winning a pawn, and it's not the best suite of moves in the position. Although it's completely clean, it's better for white, Spassky looks further and finds better and plays pawn to d5. An excellent textbook way of how to play with an isolated pawn for the white pieces. Giving away the pawn to activate this rook on the d file, these pieces on the d5 square, and punish this uncastled king that is now regretting its choices because of the pressure imposed on e6. If black takes this pawn with the knight, black loses immediately to a3, attacking this knight, and will just chop off everything on d5, and the pinned pawn will decide the game for white, as you can't take one piece at a certain time. And if you take with the bishop, it goes to the game. So his opponent took here, knight takes, and the follow-up is brilliant, bishop g5. Once again, no flaws in this play. This is a flawless game, literally flawless, no flaws. Bishop g5 aims to pressure this knight by pinning it so that we can take on d5. But you can't just like get out of the pin, because we're also threatening to take, putting this pin into action. You can't take back with the knight, so the knight is a target here. And if you take back, you have to, otherwise it's piece up. We take, you take, we take, and you can't take because we take here. So we just win a piece. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the magic by Spassky's pieces in this position. Pressuring this knight 3 times, pinning this queen twice, and this pawn once. 3 pins on the board. All of the pieces are in the attack except for the rook on a1. What magic is going on? Whereas the black pieces are just lacking development, with the king still in the middle. So the least you can do is get rid of this new pin with bishop e7, but it's too little too late, and Boris Spassky plays this to a T. He first takes on f6, because he knows that if bishop takes, it reopens this pin. And then we can just take, as we saw, up a piece. So this forces pawn takes, and now Spassky plays takes, forcing pawn takes, and just goes for creating weaknesses, because he knows that now that the weaknesses are created, black can't castle on this. So the castling rights are gone. And he simply plays knight d4, what his opponent grieves about not doing earlier on. Blocking the isolated pawn is textbook of how to win against the isolated pawn. So he played textbook of how to win with it, and now he's playing textbook of how to win against it. It's beauty. His opponent is lost here. If you castle, because you're some type of brave person, knight c6 is a fork that wins this bishop with check. There's no pin on that e-file. And if you go queen d7 to try to block and prevent knight c6, well, I've got news for you. Rook e1. And black just can't castle because we're just taking this bishop. Black can't castle forever. And it's over. Knight f5 is coming in. And the pressure is just too much on this e7 bishop. So black plays a crumbling king f8. Just getting out of this file. Burning with desire for some hope of a greater life in the future. Spassky turns off those lights and plays knight f5. Here he is overloading the queen from the defense of the bishop and pawn. Something is going to give. His opponent Doesn't have any good move, but he plays h5, probably preventing queen h5, queen h6, and checkmate that was coming in. But it's too little too late. It's all too late. The small details in the opening that his opponent completely misplayed is what happened to be Boris Spassky's bread and butter. And Spassky finishes the game off with a brilliant rook takes d5, sacrificing a rook to deflect the queen from the bishop on e7. And after queen takes rook, queen takes bishop check, king here is forced, and queen takes pawn, threatening mate and forcing resignation. His opponent resigned here because you can't just defend this checkmate. It's not only a checkmate threat, it's also a clearing of the e7 square for knight e7 royal fork. Boris Spassky would have won the queen in this position, and yesterday we lost the king. Thank you so much for watching, and have an amazing day. Oh my god, there's a ladybug on my chess piece, Bev. What? Are you guys seeing that? Oh shit. Yo, that's so sick. Boris Spassky.